Hi, I'm Sid Meier. Join me for the interactive interview on IE. Well, I think I've always been interested in games as far back as I can remember. Before there were computers or computer games, I was interested in board games and strategy games, and play them quite a bit with friends and family. The Avalon Hill strategy games, things like that, I think as I got into my teens became something I really enjoyed, and then SPI games. Then when computers came along, it was kind of a natural combination of two of my interests. I studied computers in college, and I thought that would be a career in kind of traditional computing. I got a job for a while doing regular business type computing, and that quickly got kind of boring, and it was just about that point, luckily enough, that personal computers became affordable and accessible. And I really was able to combine a hobby, which was gaming, and something I'd studied, which was computers, into this new field of computer entertainment, computer games. The first game that I did was actually kind of a copy of Space Invaders, just to see how it was done. The first original game I did was a racing game called Formula One Racing. It was a kind of a top-down race car game. I did actually did some work for a bank. They thought personal computers and games were this new, really way cool thing, and they were going to make banks very fun and exciting places to go. So I did a game where coins would fall down, and you had a little piggy bank that you walked back and forth to try and catch the coins, and a version of Frogger where you had to kind of get your money across the street without getting run over. The first game that was actually published was Chopper Rescue, which was a MicroProse game, kind of a helicopter avoiding the missiles and rescuing the people from some place. And that was the first game that MicroProse released. That's probably after about 2 years of writing games at that point. I mean, I've done fairly hardcore simulations, F-19, F-15. Pirates was kind of my idea of what a role-playing game could be. It was more of adventure role-playing. Civilization, Railroad Tycoon are kind of strategy-type games. I find that by doing different styles of games, it kind of gives me time to generate new ideas about styles that I've kind of exhausted, and also motivates me because something new is always more interesting than something that I've already done. Certainly F-15 was a favorite of mine. Silent Service was a game that I really enjoyed doing and was happy with the way it came out. F-19, Pirates, I think at the time they were all pretty much my favorites, and then I kind of moved on to something else. So I'm very happy with Civilization. Railroad Tycoon was a lot of fun to do. I think our first hit was F-15. That game I think eventually sold 1 million copies or more over various versions and on different computers. The appeal, I think, is that you can do something with the computer that you can't do in real life. Nobody's going to give you an F-15 to fly and say, go up there, have a good time, and if they did, you'd probably not make a success out of it. You want to give the player a series of interesting things to think about, interesting decisions to make. You want to examine a situation and say, what is fun about this situation? What's the part that the player is going to really want to focus on? What are the payoffs? What are the rewards of doing this? And then be sure to include all those things in the game. Avoid the boring parts. Edit out the grungy, dirty, boring parts of the game. The development style really merges development and testing pretty closely. I mean, we have kind of a rapid prototyping strategy where within a week or two of kind of saying, let's try this game, we have something you can actually play, and the rest of the development process, it goes rapidly back and forth between playing and adding features and developing. The first couple of games I did all the programming, and the art and the music, but starting with games like Silent Service, we realized that perhaps there were better artists out there than I was and better musicians than I was. So today, they're generally from 5 to 8 people involved in a project. I like the programming. I like doing the design and playing the game and being in there. I don't particularly enjoy the management part of it or anything like that. So I've really made a decision to stay very closely involved with writing the games and designing the games. And I think when a designer is interested and excited about their topic, it comes through in the game. I think a lot of times you can play a game and say, well, this person was told to write this game, or this person really wanted to write this game, and you know, I hope in my games that it comes through that this is a game I really wanted to write. I think a lot of people who are into railroads like to look at trains and know what all the different engines are. That doesn't make a fun game. I think what makes a fun game is running the trains, being in control, making decisions, building track, kind of creating something. Railroad Tycoon for me was my first construction game, or God game, or whatever you want to call it. But it was a game about starting from scratch essentially and creating your own empire of something. The idea of kind of conquer the world games has been around for a while, and that was the germ of the game. Was, well, you know, it's fun to kind of have this big world out there and at the end up having it be all yours. And then the question was, well, what is the most interesting process that you could go through to get there? I mean, if you do it in a minute and a half, it's not very satisfying, but if you go through an interesting process and you really feel that you've earned it, then it's very rewarding to end up kind of look back at the end of the game and say, wow, I conquered that world. What happens is the game starts taking place in your head because you're planning, you're thinking. It's no longer something you're reacting to on the screen, but you're in charge and you've got these plans and things happen and you have to change your plans. But when I play the game, it really is a game about planning and thinking and making decisions, and that tends to really absorb the player. What I'm trying to do is get the game to take place in your imagination, not on the screen. Sometimes if what happens on the screen is too realistic, it almost makes you have that vision of what's going on instead of what you would imagine yourself. So, you know, I would claim that the basic, simple graphics of Civilization is a feature in a sense that it encourages you to create your own vision of what's going on. I think F-15 is probably still the best-selling game over the course of history. I think, you know, if that's what's on my epitaph, you know, did Civilization, that would be fine probably with me. I mean, I don't have a problem with being remembered for that game. It's really a problem because, you know, it's like, what do you do next? I mean, you've done Civilization. Well, it changed up till the day it shipped and afterwards. We did at least 2 revs of it afterwards. The way the process works, it's always changing. So there's not a point where we say, well, this is, you know, now we've got the game done. Now we're gonna, what? I don't know. I don't know what you do. Well, we actually have a joke around here that we do the research after the game is done. That we generally try and make our decisions in the game, especially in a game like Civilization, based on what's fun, what makes the best game. And then we go back to the history books and try and justify it with some historical fact. I think it picks up a lot of the fundamental features that made Civilization successful, but gives you a whole new, different repertoire of things to do and tools to use to accomplish them. And so it's a different game, but it has hopefully a lot of the same kinds of fun and challenge and accomplishment in it. Basically, the game is based on the history of America from the first settlers up until the American Revolution, as opposed to Civilization, where your people were pretty much one size fits all. In Colonization, you have many specialists in different skills. You'll have carpenters, you'll have cotton planters, you'll have trappers, preachers. You have your people start to take on their own personality, and if you can use them in ways that they're most effective, you're going to be most successful in the game. So you want to get a carpenter, and a carpenter can train other carpenters, and you really get the idea of kind of having created your own society with these specialists, these people that are yours. We've gotten a lot of requests for the sequel to Civilization, which would be, you know, what happens when I get to Alpha Centauri, which would be a futuristic game, and I think that could be a fun game. I think historical topics have the advantage of, you know, giving you an automatic. You've already read the manual in a sense because you know some stuff about the time period and the situation, so you've kind of already read part of the manual, you know, in your mind. We've gotten some very positive initial reactions to it on the boards, and that's really where we look initially is the boards, and those are where the more active gamers are, and we've gotten some really good reaction to it. I think each game is different. I don't compare or rate my games particularly. I mean, I think they're each, you know, it's hard. How do you compare Pirates with Railroad Tycoon? I mean, they're very different games. One person's going to like one, and one person's going to like the other. There are a number of occasions where a game has gone 6 months into development, and we said, you know, this really isn't progressing the way we wanted to. Civilization was kind of like that. We worked on it for a couple months, and it was kind of neat, but we went and did something different and then came back to it. And Railroad Tycoon interrupted Covert Action. I worked and started Covert Action, had this idea for Railroad Tycoon, whipped it out in 8 or 9 months and went back to Covert Action. Turned out, it was a lot of fun to do. I think it turned out very interestingly. It was a very unique piece of software, and certainly not for everybody, but we're really very happy with the music that comes out of it. I think that what makes a good game will still be the same, and games will still be appealing, but there'll be many new ways of accessing games. First, the new 32-bit game machines, and then the whole information superhighway network, cable television, telephone, access to games in a much easier way that you can just, another channel on your television set will be the interactive game channel, and you don't have to buy a $2,000 computer and to play games. That they're just available to you as easy as watching Wheel of Fortunes. We got so many requests for multiplayer Civilization that we had to do it, and so we have that in process, and it shouldn't be too much longer before that's out there. The thing that's really appealing to me is that it introduces a brand new element into playing, which is other human players. A lot of our effort has been kind of put into creating artificial intelligence or creating challenging gameplay. That's really neat, but you can't really replace the human opponent and the interaction among multiple human opponents, or not even opponents, but other people playing the game that you may want to cooperate or compete with, or some combination. So I think that'll be a step equivalent to kind of going from board games to computer games, in terms of how different those games will be. And there's going to be another learning process to learn what works, what doesn't work, what makes those games interesting, but we're certainly looking forward to being a part of that. They come from lots of different places. I think I might see a movie and it'll be about a topic, and I say, well, that'd be a neat game. A book, a television show, certainly a lot of things that I had kind of investigated or been interested in when I was younger kind of pop up again as game ideas. What I think I'm able to do is look at a situation and kind of analyze it, investigate it for game potential. I mean, are there interesting decisions to be made? Are there multiple paths that could be taken? Are there neat payoffs? I think there are certain things that you look at in a game situation to decide whether it can work or it can't work. But in terms of the original inspiration, really could come from anywhere.